More than a week ago, I spent about 4 hours going through an online article regarding the 2019 game Anthem. And I went back and went through it all and pulled out some clips that I felt were most interesting. And some of the clips are quite specific to the game, but a lot of them are my general thoughts on or insights on various aspects of either game development or software development, management, investment, these sorts of things. And I feel that they are an interesting alternative or supplement to the commentaries that have been out there either on this game or in game development or game reviewing or game journalism in general. So I know that this is going to be very long. This is an hour and 40 minutes, but there are I hope there is some entertainment, but quite a lot of interesting stuff that you'd be interested in. I've been in the market for a video game for a while now, and when you're invested in something already, you tend to have weak attention paid to other things, and you tend to have a kind of opinion where, well, it's like you don't necessarily care all that much about other things, which is perfectly fine. Like, you're already invested in one thing. There's a bit of a mindset such that it's like you don't want to like other things. It's not like you don't have enough space in your heart to like other things. It's like admitting that you would like something else when you are already invested in something already, right? Admitting that is to like disrespect the amount of effort, the amount of commitment that's been put into the current thing. So a person who's in something tends to not like other things unless they're looking to replace it. And that kind of says a lot about the way humans work. And it's something like the sunken cost fallacy, where somebody might be involved in one video game already, or one pastime, one whatever, and it will weaken the importance of other things. And I was in the state when I was looking at the video game Anthem, I was in a state that I was open to the idea of having another video game. And one of the problems with video games these days is they compete. And I'm not saying in terms of they compete in a market or they compete in a genre or something like that. I mean, they compete for people for all of their time. And so as video games as entertainment, for a person who participates in that more fully, what we call a gamer, that being a person who has video gaming as their primary form of entertainment settings. Anyway, I wanted to pay attention to Anthem. I forgot about it until it actually came out, until all this controversy, I don't even know what to call it, drama, interest, happened. And I've been paying attention to how people have been reacting to this game. One of the things about gamers as a person who has a certain interest in the entirety of the field, more than just their particular game. So people who are more interested in what's coming out, in the events, in the esports and stuff like that. One of the things with them is like everything in life these days, at least, there is the 15 minutes, there is the attention span deficit, there's people will be going from drama to drama. And so there have been several video games that have recently been in the spotlight in terms of being hated on. So the couple of minutes of hate kind of thing. But the thing is, gamers aren't dumb. And I think that's one of the points of incredible disrespect that so-called journalists have is they think that their audience is stupid. And that's the thing, is the audience of traditional media are stupid. And that's just the vast majority of it. But the problem is that video games, specifically the sort of video games that are challenging enough to understand that journalism has a place, that audience is a lot more something. And they will not just have their minutes of hate for a video game. They'll not just be encouraged into drama. They'll actually they'll pick apart it's called a post-mortem in software. They'll do a post-mortem on a game to understand why it isn't what they expected. And some people are really, really excellent at it, at going through all of the old interviews and articles, the official stuff released by the developers, and building a comparison of the list of promises that are broken. A lot of people are talking about how this article is an exception. I don't think it's possible for there to be an article that will ever make up for the way that this kind of rag has disrespected its primary audience of all things. But I pay attention to things that I hate as well. I mean, I think that's important. I have to know why I'm right, and if I am at all, and you bounce things off and just understand. And I like reading comments. I've talked about that before. This isn't something that I would normally do, but I'm going to read this thing. I'm going to read this thing, and I'm probably going to regret wasting my time doing this. And it's going to be long, but I know that I'm already thinking in terms that these young folk, it doesn't matter if they've got millions of subscribers. It doesn't matter how many 100,000 views they have on a video that's talking about this. I know that they're new to all of this. I know that they don't fully understand how either games or software development works, the business side of it works, the investment side of it. I know they're not actual journalists. I know that there is stuff in there that is open for commentary from a perspective that I can guarantee that I'm not going to find from them. Partly because they're so loud that it crowds out all the people that are going to have very good opinions on it. Anything that they publish, I think, is immediately going to be garbage. It's going to be fake. It's going to be intentional lies. It's going to be faulty journalism. I have zero expectations for this. I do not think that it's possible for this website to actually have any chance at all of redeeming itself. Never, never. So I'm calling this Jason's article. Okay? It's his. Now, obviously more goes into it. So I'm giving him the credit. So I want to start with what you read on the internet is just words. Facts are the things that you get yourself. So I am told that this article has a whole lot of sources and that it's all awesome and this guy talked to actual developers. I don't believe any of that, but I'll actually get into that more as I'm reading. I'm certain. They didn't cement their ownership of that name as a title for the game. That's a major screw up. That's a major screw up for a company that's done this before, that's like created games before, popular games, successful games. They're not nobody, they're not new. So something happened to have them have a title, have a working title of one thing, and have it still be a working title and it being assumed well enough, because it says they even printed out Beyond t-shirts for the staff. Too difficult. So it is very likely that there had already been, let's call it legal negotiation to cement that as owned, appropriate for their effort. Okay, so pay attention to this. Would be too difficult, which means they were trying, obviously. They had been trying, but it turned out to be something that they couldn't do. Like maybe somebody else actually had a strong enough case that when EA went to explore that, they at first thought they could get it pretty easily, but they would learn later and later that there was somebody that was willing to fight to keep it, and that it was more and more likely that that person would win any legal disputes, and maybe that person was opening negotiations from a position of strength extreme enough that EA didn't want to say pay for the license, and they only really found that out way too late. So that's unfortunate, but that happens. And we can't say it's because they're incompetent. We can't say it's because the world is unknowable, and whomever they discovered they couldn't get the rights from, that person pulled out a trump card of some kind. They pulled out their guns, they stood their ground, and EA had to fold. Nobody cares except maybe some people that are working on lore. I can't remember what the term is, but it's when you have, like, you release a movie and the movie's got a certain title, and then in the plot of the movie one of the characters actually says the title. It's like, unless they're doing something stupid like that where somebody's got, there's storyline in there and they need to refer to that title somehow because reasons, it doesn't matter what a game's called. Nobody cares. No evidence to suggest that any of this is actually true, so that's kind of a problem. Maybe they shouldn't have teased it that early, but that's probably when they got some significant investment and were able to start setting things up. No problem. It takes a long time, I guess, to build some hype sometimes for some games, but honestly these days there's so many games that are released that the long-term hype train is actually not a good thing, and it's better to kind of release the hounds of hype quite late so that it stays in people's minds. Like, for example, for Anthem, I forgot about it entirely. Too much time had passed, and it hadn't, I wasn't like paying close attention to it like I have with some other games. I'll check in every once in a while. This game I forgot about, even though I kind of wanted to see what it was like. But if they had held back to work on the hype and get it like kind of like last minute hype, it would have kind of popped out of nowhere and would have stayed in the public mind right up until release, which is another thing that I have to talk about. I mean, if you're a code monkey and you're hacking away at some stuff and you don't know what it's for, boy, is that that's annoying. Kind of dumb. So what were they doing? Working on assets? So like art assets and motion capture and stuff like that? How much stuff can you work on between 2012 and 2017? What can you actually do of any significance at all when you don't even know the vision of the game? Because the vision of the game is what you are supposed to be. Like, game development should be something like making a pilot for a TV show, where you've got most of a vision down and your effort is really good. That should already exist before. That should exist before investors put money into this game. So what this means is that the setup of the kind of miniature internal industry, for this game's development, the development environment in terms of people and tools and the space and stuff like that. Whomever invested into that was suckered into it. They didn't see the pilot episode. They weren't sold on the vision. They were sold on maybe the resume of some of the people that were kind of working on the project. So what this means is this is a fundamental problem of the people who wanted a job working on this game fooled the people who had the money. And the people who had the money thought this was a sure thing. We'll just we'll set these artists up and they can go do their thing and we'll make money later and all this kind of stuff. So there is a major disconnect between the two. What needed to have happened is, like any mature investor, those people with the money should have gone and actually had and judged that there should have been a business plan internally with all of this, including having a really, really strong vision as to what is this game? What are its competitors? What will be its competitors? Because you already know about some of the other upcoming projects, and those are going to be competition in the future. So you're not just taking from the strengths and learning from the weaknesses of the existing competitor games. You're also trying to look ahead at some of the upcoming stuff. That all has to be in the internal business plan right up front. So that didn't happen. Or that didn't happen. It was what? Somebody somewhere let that be obsoleted somehow. But basically, I suspect that there was a bit of fooling going on early on, and somebody in the investment side of things didn't pull the plug early, which is what a person should do. It's like if your company is invested into another and you realize a year in that it's going to take another 4 years to pay off, and you don't see a clear path from your 1 year point to the end, you might want to cut your losses. That you'll lose like a quarter of your investment or something ridiculous, maybe even more. And I think that the investment parents of this were too committed in on this sunken cost fallacy. They kept going with it, and it burned them. It isn't knowable how successful a game is unless one looks at actual metrics. And you're not allowed to look at metrics in many cases. You're actually able to look at Steam metrics. So Steam has a feature where you can actually look at number of users online. And you can actually look at a game and you can see how many are playing it at any particular moment, and you can see the trends, and so you'll see the game launch and it'll be awesome, or from your perspective it'll be awesome, and then the trend will be like, hey, it turns out to not be a great game after all, and you'll see the trend go down. And that's actual, well, if Steam isn't lying, then that's actual evidence. And then you'll see maybe an expansion or a big patch, and there's going to be a little bump of interest. And maybe it'll stay up a little bit more because that patch of apology actually kept it retained more players. So that's an example of something that's a little bit more substantial than Metacritic. Fans have put their faith in BioWare to continue fixing Anthem's bugs and improving its mechanics. No, that nobody does that anymore. I'm sorry, but when games as a service is the phrase that's being used for games that are released online. They're all garbage now. They're just released garbage, and it's a way of extending their development time past the release deadline that they ended up being glued to because of marketing and there are obligations that a company has that make the deadline a deadline. So they release, but the fact that it's released live means that there is the opportunity to continue working on it, assuming there's the budget for it and all this kind of stuff. And that's been a thing for a very long time. And gamers, people that have played other games and come to a game like Anthem because they've played BioWare's other stuff, they've seen that with other games. They've seen that with other games from BioWare. And gamers aren't stupid. So so maybe there are a bunch of stupid gamers who are fanboys, or maybe those people are staff or hired by EA or by BioWare in order to be like that. That's a thing. I wouldn't trust any of that, of these people saying, oh, hey guys, we should all just wait to see what this game turns into when it's patched. Believe. That's totally not faked ever. Wow. It came across like somebody never actually tried it, not just play tested it, because that's a little bit more complicated. Because there are features in there that are, the feature is wrong. It isn't just that there are bugs in there, and there are bugs in there. Though in comparison to the broken features, those bugs are actually forgivable. I mean, you're playing a game. It's an in-game life or death. You're fighting, you're shooting, right? So you're in a game and you're doing this kind of stuff. And you're going to sometimes win and you're going to sometimes lose. And it's going to be a good game is a challenge. A game like this is supposed to be a challenge. And you're going to die sometimes. Your character is going to get downed. And there are a set of mechanics that are, they're fairly standard for a lot of games these days. A lot of games in that kind of looter shooter subgenre. There are mechanics for how to deal with a person no longer in the fight. And Anthem's mechanic for that was wrong. It wasn't just bad or awkward or buggy. It was wrong. It was fundamentally wrong. I remember when I was looking at getting into a couple of games, because it costs money, so I was paying attention to a lot of things. I would look through the features, like, is there PvP at all? How has that influenced the rest of the gameplay? Because that's a big concern of mine. And the death mechanic is important to me, because I need to know what is lost. So if you're doing something like, if you're interested in competitive PvP, so player versus player, and it's ranked, well, what happens if you win? Is there a streak if you win a second time and a third time and a fourth time? So you don't just get +1, +1, +1, you get +1, +2, +4. Like, how do streaks work? So that's a consideration. But what happens if you lose? Is it -1? Is it -1, -1, -1? And then +1? How does that work? And so for a lot of games, you die. Do you lose anything? Does anything break? What are the consequences of it? That's something fundamental that I was looking at when I was researching games. And so for something like Anthem, okay, does anything break? Do you have to repair it? Do you have to go home? Do you have to, what happens? Do you lose points? Is there an experience point system and you actually lose what you've earned for a while? But how do you get back into the fight? For Anthem, basically you don't. I mean, that's really, you're lying down and you can't see anything. Like in a lot of games, you're able to D-pad up and down and actually look through other people's eyes and see the rest of the fight. You're out of it, but you can kind of free camera around a little bit, things like this. Anthem, no, you're just stuck there. And you have to wait for somebody else to come and help you, which, because there's no mechanism to actually talk to anybody and nobody really cares, it just doesn't happen. So it's forever. You're just down there forever. So you've got to actually exit the game or kill the game completely, kill the task, start it back up again to get back to login screen and get back to base. No, just don't do that. When you've got a game that's high risk, you have to make it okay for people to die. Sometimes to die a lot, and sometimes for games when you have low consequences for death, that actually encourages them to be like a little insane and just like run in with a shotgun. Like things that wouldn't happen in games that have higher consequence. So a game like Destiny, just like you just get splatted out of nowhere for no reason. It's like, I hate that. But an ally will run along, but I'll save you. You had a 30-second timer to get picked up automatically, but somebody can come along and just spend a little bit of time, and it's fast enough that they're not always risking too much, depending on how they plan, by running into where you just got splattered and helping you. So you can actually be a little insane. Or let's say you've got a fire team of 3 players. One of you can be completely mad and just be like running around, cackling with a shotgun or with explosives at close range or whatever lunacy. And the rest of you can come in and can be like, I'm not that kind of player. So like, okay, you do your thing and I'll just chill out because I know that you're going to be the insane one. We're not going to have 2 of us acting like that. And some players are just one way or the other, or they change depending on the way things go. And if too many people are insane, you'll all learn the hard way because you all die at the same time. You wipe and then you have to restart everything. And then you'll kind of like, okay, you grow up a little bit and be like, okay, I'm not going to be that insane. You negotiate it. But in a game like Anthem, there's no opportunity to do that. There's just, if you're down in a high risk game, which there's some problems because sometimes you just die for no particular reason, because there's really hard, it's challenging to help a player know where the fight is when they're tunneled on something that's right in front of them. If there's other stuff that's happening around them and they only see this and they don't have awareness of something new that's happening, they don't have awareness of something new that's happening somewhere else, and that something else is entering into the fight and shooting at them, they need to be told in some way so that they can react to it and not just die, because that's not fun. And Anthem's got a really big problem of that happening and them dying and them not being able to be picked back up again really easily, and it stinks. Okay, fine. So when this guy is talking about bugs, it's not bugs. Yeah, it's fundamental decisions about something as simple as the death mechanic, the down mechanic. Do they strip out all of the good missions to sell later as downloadable content? That's an interesting conspiracy theory to entertain. Ooh, that would. I mean, obviously they're going to have to release content after the fact, and they're going to look bad no matter what they do. And if they release solid content to try to make up for what's thin now, people might actually jump to the conclusion that they had been holding back all of that stuff all along just for the purposes of selling it all later. So EA, well, I should say BioWare, but it's probably EA. The developers of Anthem need to work for free, essentially. The only way that they can make up for any of this mess is by working for free, by releasing any of this content at zero cost. If they release stuff as DLC, they're going to die. This game is not going to work. So when there is money involved, a lot of ethics thins out. And as it thins out, when certain things can be taken advantage of, when either the consequences are low, like the reaction isn't too bad, or when it's obfuscated somehow, there will be efforts towards that. There will be. there is no way to make that not happen other than by some sort of nannying authoritarian control over the entirety of all of it, which that's a nightmare world. We can't have that happen. So one example is movie theaters way back when. At one point we're experimenting with, what's the term? Subliminal messages. And they would slice in frames of certain things. And it's not just a commercial. They would actually slice in little frames of like little ads throughout. And to see what would happen, would moviegoers go and buy more popcorn or more Coca-Cola? And I heard that, yes, it was a thing. I don't know if that's true. But I do know that vector was, it was decided that was unethical, fundamentally unethical, and it was banned. Now, I don't know anything more than that, but that's an example of a bad thing done by an industry in order to make money, and an AI system that intentionally frustrates people in order to trick them into spending more money for things. It's a thing. It's a thing. It's always going to be a thing. I'm not surprised. Am I concerned? I guess, what do I say? Like, oh, those weak-willed people, they deserve it because they're like that. I can't say something like that. Do I think that I'm immune to that? Maybe because I'm aware of the concept. But like, clearly, I think that's not true because I'm aware of my spending trends, and I think it's not true. But I mean, when somebody's got a limited budget, they're going to be less frail, less vulnerable to that kind of manipulation. This account of Anthem's development, based on interviews with 19 people who either worked on the game or adjacent to it, all of whom were granted anonymity because they were not authorized to talk about Anthem's development. Which means they're all made up by this guy. As far as I can tell, Jason made up every single one of these things. It's all a lie. All of it is a lie. So this article is now completely a lie. So I'm just going to use it as a way of talking about these issues. So we're clear. There's no difference between somebody claiming that it's anonymous and them just making it up. What would it be? I would have to trust this guy, Jason. Is that going to happen? Because I don't trust Kotaku. So no, don't trust it. Yeah, it's made up. It's entirely made up intentionally in order to manipulate things for whatever nefarious reasons that I can make up, because 19 people I interviewed who are adjacent to Kotaku, who you see how this works. Relationship. So one of the problems with having multiple teams coordinating on large projects when they're in physical locations that are placed differently is that's a really, really big problem. It's such a big problem that developers are almost better off, I don't know, trying to take one location and expand it and trying to get the very best of what's over there and having them move, even temporarily. Like, I think you can, well, I don't know. So for example, if a Canadian citizen can enter into the United States to work, for how long they can work for, because there's actually quite a lot of cooperative laws in place that allow stuff like that to happen. So it might be something like a half a year, but if you can imagine, just pull the very best from there for half a year, pull them over here, and when they're done, already have prepared over there the clone of the environment, and have your now expert people who have been working closely with the American team go back to Canada with their half a year experience, set things up and continue what they can continue on separately. I mean, separate companies working together is just so hard. Understaffed departments struggle to serve their team's needs. Okay, understaffed, that's a big problem. So there's already money issues and planning issues. Boy, does that matter. And a leadership team said to be unable to provide a consistent vision and unwilling to listen to feedback. Usually that's because those people were assigned from on high. So maybe okay, so the story would go something like, you've gotten an idea, that idea gets, well, normally it would be sold to, but for some reason, that idea is accepted by backers. Those backers insert, they blindly accept it, the premise of the game, and those leaders insert management, an oversight management, and that oversight is incompetent. So you've already got a problem of these guys tricked them, and these guys think they're tricking them back, but these guys are making an oversight committee who are probably from some other industry. So now you've got a bunch of liars who don't have a solid vision in the first place. They don't have their pilot episode. They don't have their all of the mechanics already in their head. They don't know their competition. They don't know anything about anything. Sold the thing, and they get to have a job for a while. And they just live a lie for, in this case, several years. And they've got this incompetent management team there. Okay, so that sounds like what's been going on there. This guy's making everything up. He's calling it a story. Oh, it's a story. You got to read my story. It's not an article. It's not reporting. It isn't news. It's a story. Yeah, Kotaku. When there are problems with a project, the best leave first, because they're the people that are more mobile. They've got the resume, or they've got the skill. They're able to uproot themselves and leave. There are going to be circumstances where it's possible for a development house to have some staff who are very skilled, and they're trapped. They're trapped because they moved their family with them when they got the job. And the families, they're in schools, etc., and they can't just pick themselves up and go someplace else. But there are certain people that are really high. They're high quality people. They're like the outliers of skill, and they're like mercenaries. And they'll come in and they'll be amazing. They'll easily double the production of the people around them. They'll easily do. There's some people, in terms of programming, there's some people that are easily 10 times more productive than the second best in any particular department. And that kind of person, and like, they're only being paid double. They're worth a lot. And these people are so valuable that it's worth like making major changes to everything just so you can keep some of these people, maybe, if you're lucky. Because I guarantee you that when you've got people like that, there are already scalpers. There are already people out there who are actively trying to hire these people away. And so if the company disrespects them, creates a hesitant, stressful environment, those people are going to go. Those people are going to get pulled away. Somebody else is going to come along and say, hey, I'm willing to pay you more because I know your value. I'm willing to give you a better, you can handpick your team, and etc. And as a project gets problems, the best leave first, with some exceptions. Some who have worked at BioWare's allegedly talk about depression and anxiety, allegedly, and it's usually because these are young people that they've hired who grew up in today's day and age, as opposed to the mercenary sort who would be in like their mid 30s to mid 40s, would be the young version of that kind of person. And if you think that like a mid 40-year-old isn't a coder gamer. It's been around for a long time. This is not new stuff that requires 20 somethings. And those people who are a little bit older, they're going to be amazing. And the stress that's going to hit all these young folk isn't going to hit them as hard because they've seen this before. It's standard. Say their coworkers had to take stress leave, a doctor mandated period of weeks or even months worth of vacation for their mental health. Sounds like there would be evidence somewhere. Didn't get any, did I? Oh, anecdotal. Months of vacation. Look, sometimes a company has to give people a 4-day work week. And if they have to do that, oh man, that happens even once in a company. First off, you should let that person go. You give them their vacation, give them severance. Be like, okay, well, this isn't. Give them severance and then learn from that mistake. You either don't need to hire people like that because that's a weak person, and you've got some serious problems in the company, and you can't risk. Like, that's the canary in the coal mine. The canary does die. That's how it works. The canary dies. All the miners go, oh, we're next. So your canary gets stressed. Give them severance. Don't let your canary die. You respect your people. You pull them off. Okay, and then you have to study the rest. You have to examine all the miners and make sure that everything's okay. They didn't do that. And they didn't do that because they didn't have the competency to manage people, to understand stress, which means they didn't manage their time. They didn't have a clear vision, as I said already. So they're idiots. Developers are a very strange lot. And they'll have like a cafeteria with free hot food, and they have vending machines that don't need coins, and they'd have a pinball machine somewhere and some video games and consoles, and they would like I know for a lot of people that are in other industries, it sounds like like you'd be working all day in your suit, sweating in wool, working hard, and these kids are taking naps on the couch in the middle of the day, right? And they're fed, and and I know I could imagine like a lawyer looking at a lot of that going, how is that person making that much money for doing that little work? But talking about how developers work and how that works and how ridiculously difficult it is to be in that industry, how much competency needs to be distilled into one of those employees' minds. It's hard to convey a lot of that stuff. Certainly I'm not going to do it right now. But there are already known mechanics that have not just stress relief, but are important for the culture of the game's developers. And it's clear that this company didn't already have that infrastructure in place, or they butted off like another company off in wherever the heck, and things were strict. And again, bad management. Maybe they looked at these places and went, you get rid of these pinball machines. That's ridiculous. We should be charging money. Why are we losing money on this cafeteria thing? That's ridiculous. And somebody somewhere started. Again, you've got management types that don't understand any of that, how to help those people be as effective as possible so that they can actually make money. So it was just done wrong. Someone had such a mental breakdown from the stress that they'd just gone for 1 to 3 months. That's not a thing. That's not a thing. That doesn't even make sense. Some come back, some don't. Why? You're in an abusive relationship, and this isn't like boy-girl relationship. You're in an abusive work relationship. You really think you can take 3 months off and come back to that job? Are you insane? Is this a person taking 3 months off because they can get away with that and they're paid for that? this company already sounds like something that wouldn't tolerate paying people to just not do anything. It sounds like maybe they had some rules in place that, like maybe this company had some rules in place that actually had these loopholes and somebody took advantage of it, and other people caught on and started taking advantage of it. And then there was this big stressful crunch because as they're losing people, everybody else has to pull that work. And when that person comes back, that person has to get spun back up, brought back up to speed. And that's going to drag things down. There's a problem of hiring people. You have a developer, you have a team, and you're thinking, I've got X amount of people and X amount of work to do. I'll just hire more people. And every extra person you add requires somebody in there, or more than one person in there, to reduce their productivity to get that person up to speed. So you end up with your productivity when you add a new person does this, and your hope is that it gets better and that you're going to recover from that dip. And one of the big problems is you've got a crunch time. Well, let me get the width of my screen. You've got a crunch time. You're like, I know I can see the crunch over here. So what I'm going to do is like, oh, we need more people. And your productivity goes, and here's the thing. If your productivity gets back here at the release time, you wasted that much productivity. You could have not hired anybody at all and saved that. And a lot of businesses don't recognize that they needed to have hired over there to have the triangle just come back up here and get a little bit higher and then be out here. So that little triangle over there is made up for by the volume math. Anyhow, so they're losing people and bringing them back, and they're making everybody stressed because of it. What they should have been doing is severancing what they need to, reducing stress, even if it costs them more money, to keep the people that they have, even if they start giving 4-day work weeks for everybody. If they did like, okay, nobody's working on Wednesdays, we're still paying you, we're going to sort this out, get the stress levels down, don't let anybody go for very long. Like, don't let anybody take a week off, man, because they need to get spun back up again. You're going to get that inefficiency triangle. So that's bad. So this means that the people that were in management aren't game management. So exhaustion, which is standard. It is so standard in game development to have that final crunch time that it's ever since video games were a thing for forever, for decades and decades. You'd have developers working 16-hour days. You'd have developers working 30-hour days. They'd sleep at the office. They'd be wearing the same clothes for 3 days, and the pizza would get ordered in, and they'd just have like a stack over there, and it's crunch time. They would do that. That's a thing. That's a thing, and any mature developer knows it. So it means that all these people that are subject to this, that are surprised by this, they're new or they're incompetent. So management is incompetent, and the people that are seeing this, they're new. They're new. So they'd never done this before. So a lot of fresh young talent has been hired, and they're not suited. They're just not suited. I would hire any of the survivors, or some of the survivors at least, because some of them are going to be tied down. They're not good enough to have found other jobs. But it would be nice to see how many people had kind of the stress survival instincts. I would have hired those off if I could magically know any of this. Within the studio, there's a term called BioWare magic. And when that kind of crap gets made, it means that there's some idiot in management who likes the buzzwords and is so distant that they think this kind of stuff is a motivator that's going to make everybody happy. It's a belief that no matter how rough a game's production might be, things will always come together in the final months. Now, this is the kind of propaganda management has when they don't know how things work. Even when a project feels like a complete disaster, there's a belief that with enough hard work and enough difficult crunch, it'll all come together. Fallacy of the sunken cost. Right? It's any kind of software development is always going to have that now we suddenly need to really work hard, and often there's a lot of idealistic nonsense here, and they're blind or they're lying to the people above and to themselves, and the wall happens. Often it's it's release day, so they have the 0-day patch where they have to face the fact that the game is going to suffer unless they actually fix some of the things now. If they don't do that now, the game, the IP will suffer. The entire IP will suffer. And some games manage to do that, and some don't, and often they have to pay for it. They have to hire in mercenaries to actually help them with some of this stuff, for example. According to people who were on the project, as is typical during this sort of ideation phase, nobody knew what the game would look like yet. No, actually, that's supposed to be done. That's supposed to be done before you're getting any competency involved on this. Really, a lot of this stuff should be the creation of a game should be almost like it's manufactured by people who are paying attention to the industry, almost like marketing people. And they pull this idea together, and they build the development team. They go to the development team and say, hey, we think this idea is going to work. What can you do with this idea? Can you do this differently? Can you do this differently? And so your idea comes ahead of time. There's a problem with developers where, well, you're getting developers who are bringing these ideas up. They shouldn't at all. Okay, get your experts first. Get away from traditional sci-fi and fantasy. So what else is there in video games? Like historical homework? So the game would feel distinct from Mass Effect and Dragon Age. It is not hard for a game to feel distinct. But the thing is, you can't really do that because you have to have a familiar, it's kind of like a familiar mythology of mechanics underneath every single kind of game. So you've got certain ideas, like there's the role concept, DPS, tank, healer, although that's being expanded, and a lot of games will play off of that. But it's like there are different personalities and there are different problems in the game, and there's concepts like cooldowns and loadouts and things like this that are all there, and you're not getting away from any of those things. So you're not going to get distinct as such. You're just going to get new lore, and that's not hard to do. I mean, it really isn't hard to. There's a lot of books, there's a lot of writers, there's a lot of ideas out there. It's not hard to make something that's distinct from the lore all the way up. In terms of mechanics, it can't be too distinct. And a lot of the pointy-haired bosses like throwing around concepts like, we want a game that's as successful as these other things, but we don't want it to be like those other things. Like, what? No. This universe with an inexorable gravity that was constantly pulling in alien ships and hazards. Cool. A sinkhole in the universe, but a sinkhole with alien technology that humans would want to go and explore because, hey, there are aliens? We haven't met any, but all this stuff. Gotta go look. That's, like, foundationally, that is an awesome idea. Some other game should do that. As a result, the world would be lethal and full of dangerous creatures. Yeah, sure. You are the bottom of the food chain and everything is significantly more powerful than you. But not more powerful than you and your friends. You want to be like, I'm like that game over there, but better. This is why. These are the mistakes it made. We're not doing those mistakes. These are the best things they have. We're taking all those things. We're doing this little twist, according to developers who worked on it, but it wasn't always a loot shooter. The term is looter shooter. It's a little bit weird. The kind of game where you'd... Is this guy a games journalist or what? Because, I mean, getting that wrong is kind of suspicious. There's a difference between making a game that's based around looter shooter and looter and like shooter survival. So the looter shooter, the carrot is gear, is upgrades, is looking at the mechanics, is comparing things, it's going out specifically doing certain things to get certain stuff. But what does survival offer? In PvP, survival is a score of some sort. It's a comparison between other people. So that's a very fundamental change in player versus environment, player versus whatever enemy. There's a difference when you've got that and then no reward. Going to try to accomplish something as a team, fine. Then come back and talk about it. Talk about it isn't a reward for gameplay. That doesn't work. All of this does not work. That doesn't lead to something that makes people care. Now, that's an entirely different kind of building a game. That's an entirely different kind of player experience. That is alien enough that doesn't work for the way I perceive the game, at least. And that wouldn't work for me. So that would fail because the large audience would expect certain kinds of things and they get something else. Maybe this would succeed. It's a giant risk because it offers something else than loot. I don't know. Maybe that's not the kind of risk a AAA game should ever entertain. What remained unclear, allegedly, during the process was how many of these ideas and prototypes would actually work at scale. Why? I mean, it's hard, but smart people can figure that stuff out before you even start building the tools. Dynamic environments is easy, and giant creatures is easy, might perform nicely in a controlled environment, but would the Anthem team really be able to make those features work in an online open world game played by thousands and thousands of people? Depends on how many people are near one another at one time, and one of the problems of having a large size enemy is them interacting with the environment. If it's small, then you can have, if it's the same size as a player, then all the considerations of the player's model can also be reused as considerations for an enemy model. For example, the fact that there is cover, and the cover is a certain shape, and the player can press themselves up against it. Like, so you've got cover, and you've got a player that comes up. Some games, when you bump into stuff, you actually turn around, and you can like peek out, and you got mechanics like that. You can reuse that concept for your enemies. But if you got something huge, now you've got a new set of mechanics to think about. What happens when that huge thing comes across that bit of terrain? Can they crush it? Are they now bumping up into it and they can't get past it? Like, you now have to think about the space in which that thing is at. Now you've got like, oh, it's a giant worm and it's stuck in a hole and it's kind of, there's stuff near it that you have to go and get, but it can't go anywhere. And you've got lots of people shooting at this thing. And there's a lot of raid bosses that are like that in a lot of games where you've got lots of players who are all going and fighting the thing, and the thing doesn't go anywhere or really do anything. And it has to be a Hydra and spit out new heads that do stuff, and has to summon up all kinds of ads, and you fight those things. And those are the things that are actually interesting and interactive. Wow, I may as well talk about that. Okay, look. When you've got a starship, the captain doesn't direct everybody. He kind of has ideas in mind, but everybody, there was this old Star Trek tabletop role-playing game, and you'd build your own starships, and there were like experience levels kind of thing for different crew positions, and the original Enterprise just had the best of every class of person, like the best communications officer, the best first officer, the best engineer, the best, etc., etc., etc. And it's not like you have the best captain and everything just goes. It's you have the best in every single example of department head, essentially. And you can hire the best, and you can plunk that best person into their best role and give them all kinds of support and stuff. But unless you have that in a lot of places, it's not really going to matter. Many of those developers moved over to Anthem. Nice. Where they found a team full of high hopes and ambitious tasks. They needed to eat and to pay their rent. Subtle. There was no, what you want to do when you're doing storytelling for games is you want to build it based on some really easy, obvious tropes. So player can go in, can get involved right away. It can be like, those are the bad guy aliens. They're taking from things that we need, and all this kind of stuff. You don't want it to be subtle and mysterious, and that stuff can get built in. There can be like an undercurrent there, and a really good writer will hide that stuff in. So the sorts of players who are sensitive to that will find those things, and they'll be even more engaged. But you need to have like the everyday people who are engaged. I don't want to like insult them by saying they're engaged by simpler things, but you have to have common themes that are like, so a person can go from sitting to opening up the trailer for the game or a let's play or something and be like, I'm on board right now. I want this game. You want to make the fundamental story for that, because that's where your success is, and all the subtlety can be for later. That's the depth. So there's the width of the lake is that obvious thing that attracts the most number of people, and that depth is that subtlety there. A lot of people who wanted to say over Anthem story and wanted a say over Anthem story. So that's a problem. Weren't they hiring this guy as a replacement, and already there's other people second guessing? That's a problem. So there was already, I'm guessing why the other person was pushed out for the same reason. So the other person didn't have proper solid storytelling ownership, and that person got replaced by somebody who also didn't have proper storytelling ownership, which means that management weren't backing this person. That's a problem. And again, we already know management are idiots for this game. I got a problem with anything, with software going from version 1 to version 2, because sometimes they just like, we're going to totally shake things up, when really what they should have been doing is just taking all the very best and reworking all the things that they couldn't quite get right the first time because of certain decisions, and just redoing certain stuff that they know they didn't get as good as they could have. And all the good stuff, they keep all the good stuff, and they learn they are the experts at what they could have been doing better, and do just those things better. So they have all the scaffolding. They might have to redo a whole lot, but the feel that the players get is, I have what used to be, only better, because all of these other things are cool and new, or totally fixed. Like, the developers were really paying attention to the successes and failures of their previous game, and a person goes from 1 to 2 and loves it. People would have gone to looked at BioWare stuff and gone, oh, this is just like BioWare's other games. And it doesn't matter what these so-called gaming journalists say, oh, it's just like their other stuff. The gamers would actually go, this is their best one yet. This is the best of everything that they've ever done in the past. And it would have been a hit for that if developers only focused on like getting good instead of being different. The artists get pushed around a lot. and they just get, okay, now you're working on this, now you're working on this, now you're working on this. And if they don't have direction, they're always going to be pushed to get this new thing done right now, because we need it right now. Oh, we have a new vision for this. Can you make us a mock-up of this other thing like right now? It doesn't work. It really doesn't work because it's hard. Oh, remember the triangle I was talking about. So they're putting along with an initial team, and every time they're losing someone, they might not actually have that person one-to-one mentored with the replacement, which is a big problem. So they lose someone and they have this new person. They immediately are useless. This new person is useless. And everybody's kind of dragged down if this person's important. And as this person kind of gets competent, gets encultured, whatever, then so there's still this giant triangle, this void every single time. Not just a random drone gets replaced, burns out, takes a week off. If they're replacing somebody critical, then the entirety of the project has that massive dip. As every single decision that changes everything else gets made, then there's the dip for everything. And that happens, that little seesaw means that where a game should be here and should be progressing and should end, it ends up being jagged and jagged and jagged until it gets down and you got your deadline, and it has to hockey stick, as this guy was saying. There was no vision, there was no clarity, and there was no single director saying this is how it all worked together. They never seemed to settle on anything out of that person. So they didn't have a benevolent dictator that just said the way things were. They didn't have, what would I say? They didn't have a Steve Jobs going in there being a complete jerk, stressing people out, but having an absolute vision of how things would go. See, that's so that means, so I was talking about the 3 layers before. The money, and then that the lie being sold to get the money, and then the insertion of an incompetent oversight committee, that oversight committee not knowing what the heck is going on and not being able to make any of the decisions, leaving everything to the liars. They kind of muddling about trying to figure out what they're doing because they don't actually have leadership. They just had the lie, and some people already jumped ship. Normally what would happen is you get whatever. Normally you would have more consistency. You would have a head, and you'd have better handoffs, and you'd have better decision making. All this is indicative of that initial business plan not being created, that pilot episode, that strength, that vision right at the start should have existed. And then there should have been a dictator assigned. Technically, a dictator and a spare helper who can step up in case that dictator gets hit by a bus. New IP, new genre, new technology, new style, everything was new. False. Everything is old. Doesn't matter if it's new IP. Doesn't matter at all. New genre. No, you haven't made a new genre. You've made a looter shooter. No problem. You need to define what your competitors are, because you need to make something not too alien. Because if you make something too alien, as a AAA developer, if you make something too alien, people won't know what to do with it. But if you make something like that other stuff, only better, then people will go, I know how to play that already. I've been looking for a game that's better than whatever. And we'll try it. You don't want to be new. That's silly. New technology. Okay, yeah, everything's new technology. That's kind of hard. That's rough. New style. Whatever. You've got artists love that kind of stuff. You challenge artists to be like, hey, I don't really know what I want. Can we fiddle around with some of these ideas? And the artist will go, nah, and they'll go off, like, smoke some pot, and they'll figure something out. I don't know how they work, but it happens. It's a thing. BioWare first shifted to Frostbite for Dragon Age Inquisition in 2011, which caused massive problems for that team, which they should have learned from. Many of the features those developers had taken for granted in previous engines, like a safe load system and a third-person camera. I heard a little bit about this already. Simply did not, I actually don't know if I learned about this because of the recent Anthem related stuff, or if it was from way back then. But it's like the most embarrassing thing to have absent in an engine, but you only build the things you need to build, because the crunch time for the creation of the game that engine was for, that the crunch time meant that they just wouldn't work on features that didn't matter to the game. Why do that? Okay. If they're working, one of the reasons people wanted to use something like the Unreal Engine is you don't actually, a game developer, and I know this because of reasons, a game developer, when they're negotiating the contract to work with Unreal, what they do is they analyze the technology and they judge it. And there's a moment when they go, okay, we're going to start our development on the game. We're starting. And then they snapshot the engine at a certain point. And that is what they work with. And it's set in stone forever. It's done. They don't make changes. As they're developing the game goes to completion. The engine does not change. Now, what these idiots in BioWare have been forced to do is there's an engine. It was working for some other game, but it was complete for that game. It let that game work. And they've got a game that's coming, it's coming. And they're like, oh, we're missing some features. So we got to update the engine and update the engine and update the engine. And now they have to get the engine updated and updated and updated as they're pushing it. And it's not just the slowness of this, it's the slowness of this with the resistance of having to update the underlying engine. And it's an incredibly stupid, inefficient thing to do that's going to take an incredible amount of extra effort and communication, usually between two separate departments, because maybe this is just the leftover team from the original game that created that engine, and you've got your new team, and now they need to communicate together, which is inefficient. Oh, wow. It's just really a bad idea to be trying to build a game up against a moving target, a moving engine. It's just a really bad idea. It's a really, really excellent, very long-term decision to use one engine in-house that they know. If they have essentially a department that is specialized in making that and maintaining that game engine, which, I mean, that's cool if using that engine in all of its games saves them money, like licensing fees. Instead of licensing fees to Unreal, they save the licensing fees and they put that towards their engine, and their engine is awesome because they made it special. But that's got to be, boy, does that have to be done. That has to really be done for them to actually make any games off of it, and it has to pay off, and it has to be a long-term thing. And it has to be a really capable engine. It really has to be capable. Oh man, do they mess up. Frostbite is like an in-house engine with all the problems that entails. It's poorly documented because it's not being sold as an external product. Hacked together because it's only as functional as the last project which used it, because it's not being sold to a variety of customers, and so on, with all the problems of an externally sourced engine, right? So it's as limited as, it's more limited, but it's at least as limited as Unreal, for example. But it's it's worse than that, because it's in-house and doesn't have the accountability that customers would have, clients would have. Realized that many of the ideas they'd originally conceived would be difficult, if not impossible, to create on Frostbite. Now that means that this entire project should have been put on ice, and all that money should have been put into funding to make that engine do what they think it's going to do. It should not be like a really brutal prototype testing thing demonstrating all the mechanics they wanted would have to be built by the Frostbite team to prove that Frostbite is ready to make the game that they want before that initial pitch gets made to fund to create this new game. That should have been done already. Like I wouldn't go into Unreal and be like, I'm thinking of doing this, and just be like, I'll get Unreal ahead of time and I'll build everything against Unreal and then I'll see what it can do. I'd go to them with my vision. I want to be able to do these things. I'd look to see if other developers who use that engine are doing similar things. And I'd actually go to the company, like I'd ask them, I want to do this stuff. Maybe I haven't seen quite these things. Like I want to have a button that lets me see through mountains. Like, can I do that? And Unreal would be like, sure, no problem. You fiddle with this setting. And I know some developers that have actually, they built a prototype and they went, this isn't working very well. It's like cooking my graphics card. It's working so hard at this. And they go to the developers. The developer's like, look, I know you wanted to do this, but you don't really need to do that in that way for that result. Why don't you try this other technology? It'll look good. It'll look really good. And it'll fix that problem of yours. And when you are a customer to a responsible engine developer, you can go to them with this stuff. But they can, you can't get features really put in necessarily, but it is the responsibility of, say, Unreal to make their suite of technologies, because it's not just Unreal, there's a bunch of other stuff that happens. They would want to be as capable as possible to cover as many different desires as possible. But Frostbite only covered the desires of the video games that it was forced to evolve to support. See, there's a really big problem when using certain tools that are built in-house, as opposed to, even though it sounds like you're making less money, and technically that you're relying on somebody else. It's a point of vulnerability using an external company. But it's actually quite efficient to go to some other company that specializes, that works with your competitors, and you get to offload all the responsibility onto them for making a really good engine and supporting a really good engine. And you can go to them and they've got a finished product and they can answer questions. And you might be paying licensing fees, like every copy of a game might give a little bit of money to Unreal. But honestly, that is cheap compared to the amount of politicking that has to happen. That alone, doing that in-house. EA it is a beautiful dream, but unless they intended to have Frostbite saleable as a product externally, having it as an internal only thing is actually really, really hard. Anthem got leftovers that were inexpert with this, with an engine that didn't have demos just proving that the mechanics that they wanted were even possible. That's harsh. And now you've got the Frostbite engine, which is actively mutating in order to service two games. So it's a moving target on two fronts. I'd hate to have been them, because it's likely that what they did is they created two Frostbite engines, one for each, one which they shared for each of the teams separately, so that the changes necessary for one didn't necessarily impact too badly on the other. And then, wow, that's just bad. The main office was located in Edmonton, a place I was about to say, a place that's bloody cold, a place where winters can dip to -20 or even -40 degrees Fahrenheit. Is that cold? It's a large negative. Which staff says has always made it difficult to recruit veterans from more habitable cities. Yeah, you're not ready for Edmonton. You're not hard. No, it was time for biomagic. Just had to throw your prior knowledge out and either go on blind faith or just hope things were going to turn out well, or keep your head down and get paid as much as you can, then leave when you can. Anybody with any brain would have been looking for another job. Like in a shaky economy, people that need to keep their jobs, You can't just walk away. Look, you can't make a game that's utterly alien to players, otherwise you're just not gonna get them. You are technically stealing from or sharing a pool of players that are interested in that type of game. And you have to make something that competes with, you have to claim a piece of the pie. It's really hard to make a game that's so brand new that you get a different pie, or the pie that's there grows bigger. It's hard. It's really hard. And they weren't going to do it with Anthem. Anthem was never going to Anthem was never going to compete with Destiny 2. Never, because Destiny 2 was going to pull off of its base from Destiny 1, which was significant, and it's going to pull in new people. And Anthem was kind of an unknown. And everybody smart was waiting for a Let's Play. What you need are some gamers that go and play Destiny and really are into it already, or that can go and get into it, because they need to be. I mean, it sounds really weird having a bunch of your staff actually paid to go and play a competitor's game, but you want them to do that. You want them to know the game really well. And you get everybody to go and try that other game and get them to all fall in love with their little things. You get some people to fall in love with the lore, some people that really pay attention to the narration. Like, I found a couple of subtitle typos. I pay attention to that. I was listening to the cutscene and looking at the text for the narration. I found a couple of mistakes, just a couple, and you want your development house to go and examine your competitors and each of your people to go and find their specialty and reach their tendril out and go and learn from all of whatever any other games are out there. And you want all of them to come back and go like, I knew narration, but now I know narration, and I looked at what was being done in Destiny. And now I know how to do it better than that, because I'm going to learn from their mistakes, because I've seen what they do, and I see the best of what they've done, and I know how to do it for our project, and I know the kinds of things. And each of those top in their class, like the enterprise crew, will be able to, all those top people will be able to make their own little dictatorial choices by saying, I have the vision, I know I want to do it this way. I know it doesn't work to have a weird ricocheting, robotic, reverberating voice going off in arcades. I know that doesn't work because I've seen what happens in this game or this game. Or maybe they say, well, we do definitely want that, or we do definitely need subtitles because of certain things. That needs to be understood. You need to look at your competitors, or you're just going to shoot yourself in the foot. Verticality is the word being thrown around to give, so the open world is that way, and people add verticality to make the open world this way. And now the problem gets to be, how do you have that expansiveness but have interesting little places to explore, as opposed to just being like, it's a mountain and I fly over it? Which is why a lot of games have started putting like little paths and treasure chests and stuff kind of like in nooks and crannies. In the beginning of 2017, a few important things happened. In early March, Andromeda launched, freeing up the bulk of BioWare staff to join Anthem, which, again, with the seesaw, a bunch of staff join. Okay, you tank, and you have to make up for that tanking with all these new people. They might be big and bright, but you got to train them back up. So you got a big problem with politics when you get into the experts on that other team coming in that want to be the experts on this new game, even though this new game is supposed to already have some, including most of BioWare's Austin office. So Austin, Texas, United States. The Montreal, Canada, Montreal, Quebec, Canada office began to quietly wind down and eventually closed, leaving BioWare as 2 entities rather than 3, which is a good idea, although why that department, don't know. It was too cold there. They overhauled the art, knowing that the best way to impress Sutherland would be to make a demo that looked as pretty as possible. He's not a gamer, he shouldn't be making decisions. And after some heated argument, the Anthem team decided to put flying back in. Wow, guys, you need to have arguments about something like that? jumping and gliding and flying and hovering and stuff like that being different for different loadouts for different kinds of suits. It's kind of cool and interesting. But the thing is, there was this game, I can't even remember the name. It might actually still be in use. It was one of these officially branded superhero games. And there were all kinds of different movements. Like you could move like the Flash, and when you're in like Flash movement mode, you could run up walls, and there was like gliding, and there was all this kind of stuff. And people were like, "Nah, I'll just take flying," and everybody could fly because why everything else was too slow or too annoying, and that's the way humans work. And I would totally love super speed and the idea of using walls as the way you do stuff. And there was like web slinging, and there was jumping up and crawling up buildings and leaping from building to building, and there was like there was like teleportation to a limited degree, like line of sight kind of stuff. And people were like, no, I'll just take flying. And I could see the exact same thing happening to this game. In fact, that's already happening to Anthem, where people are like, the gun mechanics are just so dumb. Just go melee and just be your little robot ninja. In the game World of Warcraft, it's an MMORPG, but in the first expansion to the game, the Burning Crusade, it is where flight was eventually introduced in the end game of that next expansion. And there is this one environment where, hey, yeah, you can fly, but you fly in that area. And there were some missions where you had to actually go into that area, but boy, was it dangerous. You'd fly and you'd fly up, and they had cannons, and they would shoot at you, and they were dangerous. And so you had to learn to fly Iron Man style, essentially. So you could fly really, really, really high up and out of range, but you'd have to figure out how to get there. So you'd be like, near, but they'd shoot you down and predict you. So you'd be like, near, and you'd fly in patterns and try to get places. And it was really, really fun. And they could have done that with Anthem. Maybe they still can. To make the entire world open world. Make it boundless. Who cares? But make it more and more deadly the further out people go. That's your wall, is like your soft enrage, your boundary zones where things just get disgustingly difficult out in certain areas. And they will get shot down, and they'll respawn or whatever back in some safe zone. And you can have your map with like the little hatch marks, the red around an area, like these areas are dangerous. Like don't go out there because the enemy has absolute control over there, and you're gonna get shot down. But let people like go and goof around out there, maybe to a limited degree, put some secrets out there, and have like the entrance to a raid be over there, so really competent people who discover it can actually go there, and they're already really good, so they can go and do that. Or maybe have people be able to run across the ground under certain paths, and they play with the mechanic, but let it happen. These developers could have thought like this, but they didn't, because I didn't work for them, so, whatever. It's okay, it can't all be me. One day in the spring of 2017, Sutherland flew to Edmonton and made his way to BioWare's offices, entourage in tow. Allegedly, the Anthem team had completely overhauled the art and re-added flying, which they had hoped would feel sufficiently impressive. But tensions were high in the wake of the last demo's disappointment. Basically, what they have here is a person who's got the ability to axe maybe the entire project, but not competent enough to help give them real direction. Or anything, really. He's just a hands-up, but he's a jerk that plays pretend like he's going to be an example of one of the players. That this is not a good way of having decision-making done in a company. One of our QA people had been playing it over and over again. He might have actually been doing that as a way of just motivating them, because a lot of these jerkbag suits are like that. I don't like it, do better. And then puff and make steam, and then people panic and better stuff happens. which a buddy of mine was telling me about this, that that it's against the concept of a looter shooter where you loot and shoot and like you play and then you're having fun, but the loot thing is this afterthought that happens later. Whereas there's the immediate excitement of, oh, I got a thing. I can't wait to like go and check it out. Maybe I'll stop, like I'll hide in a corner and go check out the thing I got. And that's like really exciting or really interesting. And even if it's like a little blink at the end, at the edge of your screen while you're fighting, you'd be like, I got a thing. And but when it's at the end screen, it's don't like it. Yeah, I got a really big problem here. A process that was particularly frustrating. So they've got this exact same rift happening between elements of BioWare working with one another on the same project for some reason because they're dumb. And those working with the people in the Frostbite engine having their own disconnect, as well as people with the Frostbite engine because they inherited a bunch of people that had worked on is it Mass Effect Andromeda? Once that was released, some of them went to the Frostbite engine. So they've got like problems in Frostbite and then problems in BioWare and the problems between the two. Because there are people in management that think that throwing more people at things is going to be a solution. It can work, it just has to be done correctly. Yeah, I'm sure they didn't do it. We tell them this is not going to work. Look, these story things are doing, it's going to split up the player experience. That's always going to be the case because when you're a AAA game and you want to appeal to the broadest, widest, most diverse kind of community, so you're going to have all kinds of game aspects doing all kinds of different things to try to lure and appease a really widely varied market, which is why you've got like pet battles in World of Warcraft and why you've got color changes in some games and why you've got story and lore and narration and why you've got loot and mechanics, why you've got raids and enemies and PvP. You've got all these different activities and they're all different. And in fact, some of them make it difficult to justify the existence of other stuff. And that's because you want, I mean, technically you are splitting up the game, the player experience, by having both a campaign and an open world and a team-based thing and an instance-based strike system, a rating system, and it's gonna whatever. It's normal. It's normal. Splitting up the player experience is fine. By the beginning of 2018, by another former developer's alleged recollection, Anthem's progress was so far behind that they'd only implemented a single mission. Most of the high-level design had not been finalized, like the loot system and javelin powers. That's why they were adding all this grindiness, so they can stretch out the amount of time it takes from a person to get from purchasing the game to end game, because the end game wasn't done and they need to buy more time. So they were artificially inflating the amount of time that took. They wanted to extend it by like a couple of weeks or something crazy like that, including time gating, where they're just like, you gotta wait a few days for this thing to, happen. You can't do anymore, and so you can't unlock that thing. That didn't really work out. It's distaste for linear games that can be easily returned to GameStop after a single playthrough. Who goes to GameStop? No, whatever. Wait, GameStop accepts returns? No, they don't. A lot of games are like this. They'll have hard deadlines and they have lofty visions that they can't achieve, and they end up cutting stuff. And I've actually tracked this in some games, and I've seen them. And you'll see that opening area will be wonderful and will be complete, and it'll be good, and the campaign will be good, and then certain bits of the open world will be a little bit not as good, and then there's like the trailing edges, the boundaries of exploration way out in the open world would be like confusing wastelands with certain things that might have suggested pieces of quests, but there's nothing really there. I explored out in this one boundary in World of Warcraft. I've done this a few times, and you're like, there's like not even any mobs, any enemies kind of like hanging around or anything, let alone stuff to do. And you go off, and there's nothing there, but there's like nice plants and stuff. You're like, yeah, this is a cool little vacation spot. I can get my friends. I can like RP or something like that. There's nooks in the game. I can totally see why that stuff is there. That's cool. And you want to add kind of an expansive world, but it is a little bit weird. And I went and things get kind of like barren and unpopulated by even scrubs. Brush. And you go into the water in this one spot that I've got in my head. And there's like a sunken underground city. And I'm thinking there was a plan there. And the environment creators got their work done before the quest creators did. And the quest creators couldn't finish everything in time to get it put in there. And there's no development cycle that continues after release that would like get that stuff finished after the fact. They're just like, we're done, ship it, and there's a bunch of stuff that's incomplete out at the edges. And that happens with fundamental features in games, and it happens in Anthem. That's why there's certain things that are just not done. They had a wall, they were coming to it, they had to cut all the fat. So yeah, full play testing. They wouldn't even have time for full play testing and getting feedback and making sense of it and prioritizing it and addressing things. How could you tell if the loot drop rates were balanced when you couldn't even play through the whole game? Basically, what happens with a lot of these games is they get released with pretty minimal, acceptable testing, and the kind of the user base are the play testers. It's early release until 1 year later, until it fulfills its roadmap. Yeah, I'm not playing games like that anymore. Turns out that the people that they hire to give their critical assessments were lying, because when you pay to get somebody to give you a review, do you know if you're getting a good review? How do you get something impartial? You need to get a jerk. You need to get a jerk that hates everything by default, and will give you an honest assessment, like you suck, and these are the ways in which you suck, and you can say, oh, this guy only thinks we suck with these things. Well, I guess we're going to do pretty good. And if I'll still be honest, and if I'm saying you suck and it's for really, really big things, and you realize it's for big things, the suckiness is big and needs to be addressed. And for a really good game, it will suck less. It'll still suck. It's just going to suck less. I will still have pages and pages of notes for the most fantastic games, because I'll muddle through and I'll find all the problems. I'll find all the bugs. Early access, which sucks, opening the floodgates as players and reviewers began to see how flawed the game was. So the problem with early access is if there's an early access concept, then you're going to get some people who will see all the early access gameplay and will go, nope, and will not buy in. So when you provide early access as a thing, even though you can make more money off of selling people an early access thing, that's actually a gamble that you're making. If you have a good enough product that those people, those streamers, are going to be helping sell copies, that's a good thing. But it's a bad thing for Anthem, and they shot themselves in the foot by having people with these early access things who got to reveal how bad this was. So the Austin company was like Team B for a long time, and then they were like second fiddle, and now they've inherited the entire thing. And now that it's just one company doing things in-house, like one country, one city, one department doing it all, they can accomplish more things. So you can expect Anthem to get good, not right away, but eventually, because it's only one team doing it. And because they have one vision, and because it's not the core BioWare stuff, a lot of the nonsense, the multi-choice dialogue stuff, all the weird storytelling and stuff like that, it's going to take a bit of a backseat, but all the core mechanics, the things that actually matter for multiplayer, they're going to get sorted out. But it's going to be too late. It's going to be too late. It's not going to matter. And unfortunately, that Austin company, they have great hope. They're not going to have any time, and the audience is going to be unforgiving, and they're actually going to inherit a bomb, and they're going to suffer when it dies. And that is unfortunate. The Edmonton group for Dragon Age will be able to work on something else that hopefully will have a maturing Frostbite engine, hopefully. Although the engine might still need to be worked on even more for the Austin continued development of Anthem until Anthem is just killed. That might take a while, but it looks like the Edmonton, it looks like Canada made off like a bandit on this one, and they'll do okay. Hopefully Dragon Age 4 will be okay, and these people can like relax. With a few more months and some patience from players, it will have the same redemption story as so many games, service games before, from Diablo 3 to Destiny. No, this is not like those other games. This isn't at all like them because it sucks from the beginning. It is incomplete from the beginning. Nobody is going to be happy that they bought this game and then go, I'm just going to play this game kind of in its minimalish state, and I'm going to be happy and excited. People are going to say, oh, I bought this piece of crap. I tried it. I don't like it. And they're going to move on to something else. There's going to come a time when it's going to be the release of the new content, the version 2 or whatever of Anthem. It's going to be up against that person having fallen in love with something else. And for the same reason that I didn't know that Anthem was released, other people are going to might not even know that Anthem's new content gets released. And if they do, that new content is now competing with a full mature game that already has them involved. So they will only be able to re-attract their existing players to the new content if they can find the ones that are bored. It's not happening anymore. People are not going to be forgiving anymore. They're going to have to do wild magical things, and they're not going to be able to because they won't have the time, they won't have the budget. They're dead. The soul of BioWare has been ripped away, that this belief in BioWare magic has burned too many people out. No, what happened is the separation of multiple departments into multiple expertises, and the use of this other engine, and it has more than one team kind of hobbled together working on it, and 3 different projects using it, and you've got mismanagement from people who aren't gamers, and you have no concept of the initial pitch having the full vision, and no admittance of comparison between it and existing IPs out there, existing competition that's going to exist in 5 years. That's the lesson to learn. You are learning the lessons. Now go make a game. Studios say that under Casey Hudson, rather than start from scratch yet again, the next Dragon Age will be built on Anthem's codebase. I think Anthem might be the kick in the butt that BioWare's leadership needed to see. I think that might be enough to have Dragon Age canceled. It might be that damaging. And the problem is monetization is getting in the way. Greediness. And that's greediness is going to get in the way, because that greediness is what's going to fund the improvements in the game. It's going to be a rather interesting tug of war.